Like to some extent, I understand some level of concern, but again, some of the concern was like disproportionate. It's like, okay, like I'm playing video games and I'm getting C's in school. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that means I'm going to get hooked on crack. But maybe we disagree on that. Casual Exchanges podcast, where most of the time we are going to try to walk through thinking about novel, everyday, normie problems. But this is going to be a lot like those super rare coffee beans that they pull out of like elephant shit. Okay, well, sometimes you get those rare coffee beans. Other times it's just a pile of elephant shit. Welcome in. Am I the asshole for asking my boyfriend to take me to the ER and making him late for work? I mean, did he get fired? Like, probably not. But I guess like, what's the scope of like, why are you going to the ER? Like, is it because your stomach hurt, or is it because you have a Buzz Lightyear figurine stuck up your ass? You know what I mean? Like, how much of an emergency was this? Um, and also, like, it's like, okay, how much does his job care? Because it's like maybe if his job like doesn't really care and they're willing to work with him on it. Now, I guess if he's fucking getting written up or he got fired or something like that, it's like, okay, yeah, unfortunate. But again, it's like it was unavoidable. You know what I mean? Like, you can't leave that shit stuck up there forever. You know, I tried to fucking pull it out. That shit was in there like Excalibur. You know what I mean? It felt like medical intervention was necessary. Like, I can think of a lot of situations where it's like, no, it's probably fine, especially if you really needed to go to the ER. And even if his job is being a bunch of dicks about it, it's like, that's not really your fault. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? Take the bus? You're going to have to fucking lay down on the bench because you can't sit down. What's a compliment you get a lot? Hmm. Wow, your trunk is more comfortable than I thought it would be. That's great, buddy. Now grab the shovel. Kidding. What signs tell you someone is more approachable or not? What makes somebody look more friendly? Hmm. This is going to seem a little bit less obvious, but I actually think your interactions play a bit of a role. If they see all of your interactions, and this is something that I try to emulate, I try to make every professional interaction like some mix of professional but also lighthearted, but also somewhat sarcastic, but also still concise with the information I need to deliver. Okay, so like, what does that mean? So like, if somebody comes up and asks me a question, I'm almost certainly going to throw at least like one joke in there. Um, I'm also going to like take their problem and give a little bit of backstory, and then probably going to lay out, depending on the scope of the problem, like our potential paths forward. Um, and again, I'm going to do that in a little bit of a. I'm going to try to be a little bit, chill with it. I'm going to try to throw a little bit of humor in there, um, and just make sure that like overall, they walk away feeling good about the interaction. You know what I mean? I think even if it's something that like they fucked up and I'm going to have to fix, um, I'm still gonna try to make sure it's you know, good feeling interaction, and I think that's important because you want people to be able to come back to you, especially in a professional setting. Probably more so in like a personal setting. I guess maybe it's equally important. Um, but you want people to be able to come to you with their problems, and so it is really difficult. Um, because people are already hesitant. Like think about like when you fuck something up or when you do something that your parents or your uncle or your best friend are going to kind of disapprove of, kind of be like, "We told you not to do that." It's hard. It's hard to, you know what I mean? Take a bite of that humble pie and just nut up and just be like, "Yo, I fucked this thing up." You know what I mean? It's very bitter. It's a bitter pill to swallow. So I try to extend some grace to the extent that like this was just like a mistake. It's totally fine. It's not um, this sort of like reoccurring thing or anything. But to the extent that it's like yeah, this thing, it was unavoidable, or yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I won't do that again. You know I try to meet everybody with a little bit of grace. Somebody's mom has probably used you as a bad example for her kids. This has to be sage wisdom. So, this is really interesting. And honestly, I don't know. I might be out of touch. I don't. I'm sure I do at least a couple of things where some people would kind of like, all right, sweetie, let's walk the other way. Like I'm vulgar. My sense of humor is definitely not super like safe for work or children. Like this content, not made for children, obviously. Um, so there are a couple of aspects of my personality that I could definitely see, you know, other people being like, yeah, all right, little Timmy, let's stay away from him. Um, but I think it's going to be a lot more of that surface level stuff. I think on a deeper level, um, like I don't want kids to get hurt, like brutally maimed. You know what I mean? If they fall on their ass, it's like maybe they learn a lesson. Um, but I don't want kids to get hurt. I'm not gonna let them play in traffic. I'm not gonna fucking and even growing up as a young lad, like I was never the worst kid because like my parents were pretty strict and I was scared of getting an ass whooping. Um, so I was never that guy like smoking weed in class or fucking fucking really ditching school, taking all the kids to the fucking wherever kids go. Like I was never really that guy. But I also wasn't like a great example because again, I was like borderline like skater kid, like long hair. Um, you know, I fucking wore Vans, didn't really care about school. Um, so I definitely had. There were probably at least a couple people. I'm actually aware of. I'm actually aware of somebody in our family who was telling my cousin. We graduated at the same time, telling him like, watch out for him, like make sure he doesn't get into too much trouble, X, Y, and Z, which is like super funny because now it's like I think I'm doing like relatively all right. You know what I mean? Like I have stable employment, I have stable living. Like I manage my shit in a way that takes care of my family. Um, so I feel like on most accounts, I'm pretty responsible. And honestly, I have been for the better part of my adult life. I never really got into that kinds of trouble. But it's super funny looking back to where like after our graduation, he was telling me like, yeah, I don't know, there were these people who were like, they're super worried that like you were gonna get into trouble. Are you on drugs or something? It's like, no, bro. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But yeah, this is probably true for me. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, but that's like their opinion, bro. True. Can't please everybody. True. I was always that friend that the parents had to watch out for. Me and my best pal still chuckle about the fact that when we were teenagers, his mom found his stash of weed. He said it was mine to get out of trouble and vice versa. When I got busted a couple months later. That's funny. They never spoke to each other about it. Whoo, doggy. Yeah, that's lucky. At least I was memorable and stood out among everybody else. Oh, no. My parents got divorced and I wore earrings, therefore I was worldly and a bad influence. Yeah, it's funny. Like all the like when I was growing up, yeah, it was starting to be like the guys were kind of wearing earrings and stuff like that. But I never. I mean, my parents got divorced and I never really got shit for it. Um, so I wonder if that's like a real thing. Oh shit. Attitudes have changed since then. Hopefully, I'd rather my kids were friends with the kid with earrings with divorced parents than a kid who lives in a dysfunctional two-parent household where the parents should have separated years earlier. Like, so bad influence. What do we think here? This is probably something I should put more thought into because my kid's getting into school and stuff like that, and obviously she's just gonna keep growing. So this is probably something I'm gonna have to put more and more brain power behind. Um, but like, what do we think qualifies as like a bad influence? I, off the top of my head, like if a kid doesn't have like a ton of like parental supervision or involvement, that might be a red flag, right? Even if it's just because like his parents are like super busy and stuff like that. Um, if he has, this sounds a little fucked up, especially since I'm always talking about how strict my parents are or my parents were, um, like a little bit too much freedom. Again, like I probably would have gotten into more trouble. You know, idle hands are the devil's playground, especially in my case. Um, so like that probably potentially something to look out for. I also think like, man, this one's really controversial, but like I do wonder about like kids who are already dabbling in like substances. This one's gonna be hot topic. Everybody's gonna disagree with me, but it's like I guess at like what age? Like if 12-year-olds are already like sneaking beers and smoking weed, it's like, bro, 12 years old, bro. I don't know about that one. That seems rough. Um, versus like the friend who did it once at like 15. You know what I mean? It's like if you're doing that on a regular basis, oh man, I don't know. That's starting to seem sketchy. You know what I mean? Um, and just to be clear, I mean that would be my position if I was hanging out with an adult and every chance they got, they were trying to smoke or drink. You know what I mean? So it's like, why wouldn't I also put that expectation on somebody a little younger? Um, definitely, I think. I mean, if they're just encouraging behavior that I don't want to see, is probably where I'm gonna have to like kind of like squint a little bit and be like, because again, if they're being encouraged, or if they're encouraging my kid to like ditch class to fucking go get high, to go fucking I don't know, stick up a fucking liquor store. Damn, I'm acting like I live in fucking Chicago right now. But I think stuff like that. I think there are plenty of things, and I want to try, um, to be like open minded, and I don't want to judge people like too harshly, But I do think there are gonna have to be boundaries. Like as I think about it, there's gonna have to be boundaries to where like, all right, again, if you make like a mistake to the extent that it's not mega fucking illegal. Okay, if you make a mistake, like okay, let's try to work past it. But it needs to be with the understanding that like, look, we can't keep doing this for these reasons. Um, but if they have somebody constantly in their ear, like, no, it's not that big of a deal. Everybody smokes weed. Everybody fucking drinks after school. You know what I mean? Like everybody's gonna be at this fucking house party. It's like, oh man, I'd be looking at that. I'd be looking at that with a real kind of look of suspicion. I'm like, I don't know. I'm open to change my mind, and I'm gonna have to think about this a little bit more, obviously, because my kid's 10 years away. Unfortunately, I was that kid. Parents wanted their kids to be like, but I always envied them. They had an interesting life with lots of good memories. I have nothing. Not that I was very good. I was introverted, lots of anxiety, but I came out as well behaved and polite. Again, like I don't think that's everything. I think in there definitely during the early parts of my life, it was really big. Like manners, like certain manners. Like we called everybody like Mister or Mrs. or Miss. Um, it was absolutely you don't interrupt people while they're talking. When adults are talking, you definitely don't interrupt. You every adult, you kind of show them respect. You respect your elders, like that kind of stuff. That kind of old age shit, if you will, that boomer shit. And I just don't buy into all of it. Not that it's all necessarily bad. I do think, and it's very tough to ingrain into kids, like, bro, like we're talking, you gotta chill, you gotta wait, you can't be rude and interrupt people. You know what I mean? That's not cool. Um, but I think that's more of just like a social thing. It doesn't mean I don't know if it needs to be like you never fucking interrupt adults when they're fucking talking. Do you understand me? Like it's like all right, chill, bro, chill. It's like look, we need to exercise some patience. All right. So in a lot of situations, again, in a lot of situations, I probably was the more polite kid. I was looked at as like more well behaved. But then after high school, I was probably seen as like a hoodlum. That's around the time where like my parents got divorced and shit like that, and I had a little bit more of like fucking skater kid vibe. I had the long fucking hair, um, and I had less supervision because my parents had split, and so I still didn't get into like a ton of trouble. Um, but still, there's always like this, especially when kids go into high school, if they're not super ambitious around like academics and they're not really doing well, and especially me, I was like playing a lot of video games. I could see why it's like, oh man, he's gonna be a bum, he's gonna be a loser, he's gonna get hooked on drugs or some shit. Like to some extent, I understand some level of concern, but again, some of the concern was like disproportionate. It's like, okay, like I'm playing video games and I'm getting C's in school. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that means I'm gonna get hooked on crack. But maybe we disagree on that. Doubt it. I grew up among tiger parents. What the fuck does that mean, bro? Grew up in Southeast Asia or something? My parents were tiger parents. Everyone wanted their kids to be the best. No matter how well we did, somebody else's kid was better. So you would tell your parents you got into Harvard. They'd say, that's good, but you know so-and-so's kid got into Harvard and Oxford and MIT. That kid has more schools wanting them than you have. I don't see why you're excited about not being wanted. Damn. Just to be clear, I dropped out of junior college. Okay? I didn't get into any of those fucking schools. They literally would have used my application to wipe somebody's ass. Like. And that's all, folks. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That way you can talk shit on my next video too, all right?